On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
Anybody who's a contractor has been in this industry, you know that the first feeling people have when they sit down with you is like fear, and they don't know why they're hiring you and who they should hire and what questions they should ask. And
Right.
there's no standardized process. And I
Right.
think that we're one of the only industries left that is the way it is. I don't like initial feeling people have is this distrust. So
So
it's really important to me that we change that at scale. And that's one of the reasons why I switched to Alair, is because we can affect a whole lot more lives with 100 offices and 200 offices and
right.
300 offices. Now, residential construction companies and contractors have earned the reputation of not necessarily being the most trustworthy and charging too much and change orders and schedule and all the things. So
Right.
it's an uphill battle, but we're passionate about that.
You are listening to Gathering the Kings with Chaz Wolfe, featuring fellow 7, 8, and even 9-figure business owners who have real battle scars from business and life, but have prevailed as the king that they are designed to be. We welcome high-performing entrepreneurs to the stage in order to reveal the real of the real on what it takes to build a successful business today. We dissect the good and bad decisions they've made along the way that give a true and accurate picture of the journey of success and how you too can get there. Through this dialogue, you will learn the value of growing your network and surrounding yourself with power players and kings like today's guest. Grab your pen and notebook because we're about to dive in.
What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast. Today I've got Stacy Eakman here on the King stage. My brother, Stacy. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. You know, we were just talking off air. It's Monday morning, fresh, early, but then I realized that you were Pacific time. Holy moly, it is really fresh, early Monday, your time. Thank you for being here, dude. Just so appreciate that.
Well, thank you. It's exciting. I like it. This time it's best because the office is quiet, so it's a good time to record.
That's right. There's something in that. Maybe if the listener's paying attention, if they don't already have a early morning routine, they might pick up a little extra nugget there from you. But Stacy, tell us what kind of business that you got, brother.
Well, we've got a few. My main business I started 10 years ago was Eakman Construction Company.
Love it.
And that company is currently just announced. We're going through a transition, becoming Alair Homes Kirkland. And Alair is a franchise. It's the biggest custom home and large scale remodel company in the world.
Wow.
And we're office number 95 in North America. So we own a franchise there, and that transition is ongoing. It's challenging, exciting, a lot of work, a lot of early mornings.
Yeah.
And then I have another business that I acquired in 2021. It's a fencing company. So that's Contour Fence. And we do residential and commercial cedar, chain link, vinyl, iron fences and gates. Yeah. That's a great business. I was excited to get that. And then I do some real estate investing and development as well.
Yeah. Nice. Get your hands full, plates full, but here you are rocking and rolling on a podcast. So there's got to be a reason why you're doing all that. That's my first question to every guest. Not only why are you doing it, but at this level, you've obviously been successful for a period of time. You haven't slowed down. You haven't sailed off into the sunset yet. Why? What's the bigger picture for you?
My dad was in construction as well. He owned a small construction company. And I really have a passion about changing the way people feel about residential construction companies. We build custom homes, so we build for clients. I do a couple of spec houses a year, but that's not my main business. Yeah. Anybody who's a contractor has been in this industry, you know that the first feeling people have when they sit down with you is like fear, and they don't know why they're hiring you and who they should hire and what questions they should ask. And there's no standardized process. And I think that we're one of the only industries left that is the way it is. You know, you go buy a car, you can go to any Toyota dealership, and you know that you're going to test drive it. You're going to go sit with the finance guy. You're not going to send the contract to your attorney to mark up and go back and forth. You know what to expect.
Yeah.
I don't like that feeling of like the initial feeling people have is this distrust. So
So
it's really important to me that we change that at scale. And that's one of the reasons why I switched to Alair, is because we can affect, a whole lot more lives with 100 offices and 200 offices and
right.
300 offices as that grows. And we can really change what a whole community and population feels when they are thinking about construction companies. Now, residential construction companies and contractors have earned the reputation of not necessarily being the most trustworthy and charging too much and change orders and schedule and all the things. So it's an uphill battle, but we're passionate about that. That's my reason for Eakman Construction, is because I saw how it affected my dad. He's the most honest human being on earth, and people still felt that way. Right. So that's kind of what made me want to do.
Yeah.
But I think that life overarching everything is why I keep going, is I worry. I'm really afraid of regretting at the end, right? When I get to the end, looking back and saying, man, I just wish I would have just went a little harder, or took that risk, or done that thing. So that is my biggest driver, is I do not want to get there and say, man, I just needed one more day. I almost made it. I almost got what I thought I wanted, whatever that is.
Yeah. There's a real fear there for achievers. And I think that feeling, even if the listener also has that feeling, it might stem from something different. It could stem from your upbringing. It could stem from, it could from a lot of different things, actually. But it is interesting how that is a driver, like a major driver. Do you feel, and this is more so for the listener, I'm pressing into this a little bit. Do you feel when you wake up that fear that we're talking about? I don't get the feeling that the minutes that we've been talking here, even before we hit the recording button, I don't get the feeling that you're a fearful guy, that you're operating out of fear. But what you just described was that, I don't want to get to the end, so I'm XYZing now, which is it's a delayed gratification. It's a little bit of fear. You can kind of paint that however you choose. But I don't get the feeling that you're a fear guy. So how do you wake up with that feeling of I don't want to miss out, so I'm going to press in? What does that look like, or what does that feel like on the inside of you every day?
It just feels like ambition and excitement about the next thing, and where we're going, and how I'm developing the processes and my team and all of the people around me, helping them improve. I think that I definitely don't operate out of fear in the business sense. I take a lot of what I hope are good risks. Some of them work out, some of them don't, but I just keep it pushing. And
that's right. I
think the fear is that I'm afraid of being too afraid to do the thing. So I just do the next thing. That is my life motto, or what I live by, is just do the next thing. Because these things that I want to do are enormous, but, and if I just, and it's the simplest. And I learned that when I was going through a really hard time in my life, and it was literally just the next minute and the next hour, and okay, now it's time to brush your teeth, and now it's time to go to bed, and the simplest of things. And so I break it down just like that. Like this morning, it was okay, the next thing is I got to do this podcast. I don't love talking on camera, and I don't love all this, but the next thing is, okay, I got to prep a little bit. I got to think about it. I got to watch a couple. I got to figure it out. So that was the next thing. And so, and then all of a sudden I'm here, and we'll get through this. And the next thing will be, my first meeting with one of my leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. What I'm hearing from you is that, of course, it's not fear. I'm glad that we kind of made the distinction there, because I think the listener could have, maybe grabbed onto that, because you're right. It's not fear. What I'm hearing from you is that it's permission to go for it. I don't want to get to the end and regret. So it's not fear today. It's actually permission. It's no, go for it. Take the risk, take the chance, get up, just do the next thing. Don't worry about, kind of like the rest a little bit. Don't be regretful. Just go for it. Is that what am I hearing the right thing?
Yeah. Fear might've been the wrong word. It's I am not going to get to the end and regret it. That's it. I'm just not, that's not going to happen. That's unacceptable. So I'm just going to keep going.
I hope the listeners paying close attention, dude. We could end this podcast freaking right now. And that sentence that you just said, I hope if I'm like a tonality, voice, person. And if you go back and listen to Stacy's inflection, his conviction in what he just said, I just got chills. There's no chance he's getting to the end and it not being exactly how he wants it, period. And that is like you want to call it definiteness of purpose. My goodness. All right, dude, we got to keep rolling. Tell me how you got into construction. Obviously it was your dad. Tell me a little bit of the backdrop, beforehand, all the fun stuff.
Well, I didn't really want to do construction necessarily.
As the story goes.
Yeah. But how I learned the trade with dad a little bit, worked with dad. So I knew how to do it. And I was broke. I had no dollars. So I could do that and make some money. And I was doing it just kind of on the side and on the weekends, and kind of accidentally got forced into getting a business license because I was operating out of business rules here in Washington State, and I got an opportunity to do that. And so I did that. And then next thing you know, I was here. I think that, entrepreneurship in general for me, I probably always had it a little bit. I was always, whether it was baseball cards or bicycles or whatever it was. But I think that where it really kicked in for me, that I had no money, and I was living at a friend's house and had no way to pay them anything. And he and I decided one night that we were going to look on Craigslist and find free couches. And we were going to take them to the car wash, and we were going to clean them, shampoo them, and then we were going to put them back on Craigslist in the morning and make some money. The first couch went amazing. We got it for free, and it was actually a nice couch, and we got $80 for it or something. And it was we have made it. I had a pickup truck, and we just kept doing it. We ended up getting a storage unit, and we had them lined up in there, stacked up. We would get them on the 28th to 30th because people were moving out of their apartments. They couldn't sell them. They had to get rid of them. Then we'd sell them.
That's right.
1 through 5 the next month. And that got me excited about, buying and selling things and thinking about efficiencies and how we do that. And can we sell the thing before we unload it? Can it still be in the back of the truck? Or can we drop it? We'll sell it for $60 if we don't have to unload it. If we unload it, then we got to sell it for 80, so it got me thinking about that.
Love it.
And then I got into business, down the road, years later or whatever. I end up getting into business, and I really enjoyed the business side of construction. I didn't think that, like I said, Dad's business was a small company. It was him and one guy usually. And so I did, I'm from a small town. I'm from Yakima, Natchez, Washington, which is outside of Yakima. And I just didn't see it as a business. I just always thought it was I'm just going to have to swing your hammer my whole life,
Right. Yeah,
and
exactly.
Once I got into business and I started meeting some other contractors and learned what Microsoft Excel was, and oh wow, that's what an estimate is. I was pretty rudimentary 10 years ago when I started, and I got excited about all of that and developing myself and my team and all that. So that's how we're here.
Yeah, fairly natural progression. What I loved about that just a few minutes there is that it wasn't just this paved out path, even though, yes, your dad was in the trade. It wasn't necessarily you had this hey, here's exactly how to do it. You still had to kind of stumble upon those things. And actually the last thing that you just said there, which is very similar to my story, which, you just get excited about learning and oh, if we did it like this, then maybe we could do it like this. And then, oh, Excel, ooh, let me tinker with this for a second. And then, oh, but it can do this and it can do this. And if it's just the excitement of that propelled you to the next thing, which actually goes back to what you just said about the why. It's just next thing, just the next thing, just the next thing. Right.
Yep, exactly. I think, and then, at some point I started to realize that it's more efficient for me to, I got to a point with Microsoft Excel that I can get my way around a spreadsheet and I can build a spreadsheet and all that, but it's best for me to hire somebody who is really good at that, and then I can go and learn almost enough of something different and just keep growing that team behind.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, let's talk about. I mean, you've got a decade plus of business ownership here, so I want to dig deep here. What is a good decision that you've made, even early on, potentially, where you can look back and you go, "I would do this over and over and over again." What is it?
Couple of things.
Okay.
First, most importantly, I picked the right wife.
Yes.
She has been amazing. She lets me work. She knows that I'm passionate. She's passionate as well. She believes in me. It's really important. I think it's very important. But then, on the business side, when I realized that the goal was to hire people that were smarter than me, that were better at that thing than me, and I remember I absolutely could not afford to hire my first production manager. I had a couple project managers. I had obviously carpenters and things like,
Yeah.
but I mean, things were like not going really well. Profitability was not there. And I just was like, oh my gosh, and I couldn't afford it. I had a mentor who was telling me that you need a production manager. You need somebody who understands the finances of a project. You understand the finances of a business, but project by project and task by task, and somebody that can deal with that while you sell and run the business. And Tim, I can't.
Where's it going to come from?
I'm not paying myself. He said, yeah, well, you're never going. And so I just did it. And I hired a guy. I moved him here he was down in Oregon. I moved him up here, and it was amazing. He was perfect for the time we were in. It was when we were I think we were at 3 million a year at that time. And then, he got us to 8, really get up to about 6, but then it was a little much for him, and so then he moved on to another $3 million company where he's really happy. And then I brought in VP of operations and an estimator and a real leadership team now that has got us to where we are today. But making that decision to, even when you don't feel like I couldn't see the end of I couldn't see the light, but just trusting that somebody that I was asking for advice knew the right answer and to just do it. And it was like, what's the worst that could happen? I'm not going to make it without them. So ride it out. Okay. So I think once the actual answer there is that I would hire the right position over and over and over again, even if it is going to cut into my salary or profitability for a while, because the long game is there. We develop a company instead of a job. I had a job that I was building for myself.
Yeah. I got several questions here. I love this answer. I've gone deep on this topic. In fact, in one of my companies, I just made this same decision last week. I'm going, okay, P&L says we shouldn't, means we should. Yeah. It's time. Okay. So inside of that, the listener potentially might be thinking, all right, well, you said you didn't have the money, but you did it anyway. That doesn't make sense. Where'd you get the money, Stacy?
I mean, we had flow, right? We had, not necessarily positive flow, but there was money, right? There was money. And I don't recommend being in that position, because that's how contractors have earned the reputation of being overbilled but I was already there. So what I did is I said, okay, I'm going to hire this person, and I couldn't train them because I didn't know the position. I couldn't hire for them. So I had somebody help me hire. And then I said, okay, once I do that, I'm just going to get out of his way entirely. And I'm going to trust that he knows what he's doing in that position. And then I have to go sell. Right? Yes. We've got to grow. I've got to sell a bunch of jobs and get the company financially in a spot where we can sustain his salary for at least a few months until it starts to work. And it worked out.
Yeah.
I was not operating in fear. I was going.
Yeah, exactly. It's the opposite of that. You were like, here we go. I'm jumping, I really hope the listener's paying attention because you gave super clear, like, this is how you can go do it, even if you don't have it, which for the brain, that's like, I don't understand. 1 + 1 is 2. It's like, no, not always. And sometimes you just got to get in and kind of figure it out. What I also heard underneath you say is that, okay, well, negative, positive flow, there is flow. Well, what that means really is that when you hire somebody like that, you're not making an $80,000 or $120,000 decision. You're making a $6,000 a month decision.
Exactly.
And okay, so when you break it down like that, you're like, okay, well, worst case scenario, I hire this guy who's supposed to be great. This other guy's helping me hire him. He's supposed to be great. I'm going to get out of his way. I'm going to give him 60 days, 90 days, whatever the scenario is. Okay, so we're talking about an $18,000 decision. Well, I got to go sell one more house.
Yep.
I can do that. So now you start breaking down worst case scenario. Now I'm practical. Okay, I can make this decision. That's how I actually jump off the ledge and make that decision. The other part of it is like, you just got to do it. But if you can do the math a little differently, then sometimes it works out a little bit better. The freedom that you had in that moment to then go sell, or maybe the pressure. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah. I never, well, rarely, and never is a big word, but I rarely like feel the pressure to sell. I'm not much of a salesman. I just sit with people and explain to them how I want to change the way they feel about it. I'm just selling an experience.
That's right.
Explaining an experience. And in that moment, it gave me the confidence that if I sold it, we were going to execute.
Yeah.
I could pass it down and I didn't need to follow it all the way through all the processes. And I didn't need to hold the client's hand. I could hand it off once I got it, quote unquote, sold. And that gave me the confidence in that moment when I was talking to the client. I mean, that comes across whether you're pretend like you're confident before and talk somebody into believing you're confident about your process or when it's real, people can feel that, you just have a different demeanor. And so I got really efficient at that and improved at that. And we were better at estimating because I wasn't doing all the estimating as well. And so it was just better. And then I could start picking the jobs because I didn't need, for the longest time, it was like, I have to sell this job. I don't care if it's a ditch that needs dug. We got to sell it because we need the flow. I got that $6,000. I need it to pay production manager,
That's right.
So, but once we got to where we were profitable on the jobs, I was able to say, okay, well, we don't actually dig ditches, we build houses. So it put me in a better spot.
Yeah. There's so many like building blocks here that you just identified. So I appreciate you sharing that, but it is true. As long as I think the mindset of the owner in that moment is to then go do the next thing in the business, as opposed to, sip a Mai Tai somewhere. That's not going to help with the flow, right? So hire the guy that you need or the gal and get out of their way and go sell some other projects or the next level of your business. Go take it to the next elevation, because that's the only way that, number one, you're going to pay for the thing that you just did. Number two, that is growth. It's the desire for the next thing. In fact, actually, this is kind of cool. I heard this past weekend, this guy I was watching, he's talking about desire and the fact that it's not like be content. You can be satisfied, like thankful for where you're at, but to have a desire for more, the want of more, which is where you were in that place. You're like, okay, if I stay at 3 million, okay, it's going to always be like it is, which isn't necessarily great. It's all right, but it's not great. I want more. Okay. So in order to get more, you had to like creatively put your mind into a situation where you thought of a different solution, which was hire somebody better than you, and then be able to like force yourself into like, okay, I got to go get to the next level. So anything else you want to add there before we move on?
No, I think that describes it really well. That I'm always wanting the next thing, the more, and it's not always more money, but the better company and the better processes. And I think that the only way to do that for me that I've learned is the only way I'm able to do that is I build the company before the sales, right? Like well, simultaneously, but I'm always over
delivering the experience. It sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. I treat the $2 million client like the $8 million client, man. They get the same service level because when we get the $8 million client and the $12 million client, I needed them to have already gone through that process, even though it was only on a smaller project, so we just keep building.
Yeah. Inside of Gathering the King's mastermind, we call it grateful but not done. This position that you were just talking about of like, thankful for the $2 million guy. We don't want to always necessarily serve just the $2 million guy or the $200,000 project, whatever the scenario. I want more. And it's okay. It's okay to want more. It's okay to want to go to the next level. Like you said, I love you gave a good picture of a better team, a better operation, a better company, a better brand. It doesn't always necessarily have to equate to more money, although it's oftentimes the measuring stick.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Stacy, tell us about a bad decision. You did something that caught you some bruises, and we want to stay far away. What is it?
That for me is a tough one.
Okay.
I have made a lot of bad decisions, but I make them quick and then I pivot quick. So
good.
I don't have any that I would necessarily do different. I think that same exact time when I hired the production manager, I didn't understand my numbers up until that point.
Sure.
I thought that there was always money in the bank, there was always money. But when I realized how much of that money was clients' money that we had not produced on yet, opposed to what was our money and none of it was our money. And we didn't have all the clients' money at that moment. That was the moment that Tim told me, you need a production manager. So I was not only should I not afford it, I was like in debt to these projects already.
Yeah.
And that feeling, we won't ever be in that spot again because that was it. I felt fear in that moment because my goal was to do it different, to be different than what you hear about companies going out of business and leaving projects half done with clients' money and all that. I was accelerating how people feel about construction companies. And so I won't get to a spot where I don't understand my numbers. I needed to get the ship righted. I needed to kind of continue down that path for a little while. I needed to sell like crazy and I needed to hire somebody that I couldn't afford, but that worked. And then once we got back to even, we won't do that again. We have an amazing finance team here that takes care of all of that and keeps us, right side up. I mean, I could not sleep at night. I was so uncomfortable with that. Not because I didn't have anything for him to date, I wasn't like, wow, at that point I wasn't married yet. It was not like they weren't coming to get a house. I didn't have a house at the time, so that they could have the truck loan, come and get it,
Right.
But just how I was going to let those people down and let my dad down and my family. And I'd been telling everybody how I'm going to change the way people feel about residential construction companies. And I was going to be on the front page of the paper of the guy that, was just like everybody else. So I won't get in that spot again. That's for sure.
What do you know now, or what in that moment did you need to learn? Because when you say numbers, okay, fine. So your cost analysis, analyzing your costs, your project, the flow, the timeline. There's lots of different nuances that go into either project management or even if we're talking about, a year-end P&L. What were some specifics that you didn't know before, but that you knew maybe through the PM or once you kind of started to grasp this, that your finance team for sure does now that you'll never get in that spot again? What are some of those practicals?
We do our financial tracking sheets per project. At the end of every month, the project managers own that process, which includes a cost to complete. So at the time, now we're 100% cost plus, right? So we're not fixed price, but at the time we were mostly fixed price. Okay. And so those fixed price projects, it's you can easily get yourself in a bad spot if you've got slippage that you're not catching. You're not realizing that the $100,000 that you think you've produced $60,000 worth. So 40 of it is technically yours. That would be an amazing project, but 80 of it, and 20 of it is technically yours. But then you realize that you still got $8,000 left on the project to complete, or left on that. You had some slippage when it was only supposed to cost 80. Now it's going to cost 88. And you don't, I just wasn't keeping score, right? If you're not keeping score, you're losing. And
that's right.
That WIP report, work in progress report, and all that, and then actually doing an over under billing entry every month, so that, okay, we did $1 million in a month is what money came in, but we only produced $600,000 worth. We reverse that, so we operate on it's an accrual basis, but it's a percentage of complete basis. So we actually take that revenue, that 400 that isn't ours, we do a journal entry and pull that out of our revenue for that month. And that,
right,
we kick to the next month. And that keeps it
clean,
diligent. I can open it up and look at it. So there's that. And then this overall slippage of I learned about that. When you're just selling and doing all the estimating and you're just trying to get to the next project, and you need cash and all that.
Right.
It's eye-opening when you realize how much money gets lost in time, days that you go over schedule, and then, just spending a little bit more and not tracking change orders and that conversation. So,
yeah, it's interesting. In my retail franchises, it's the same thing. I remember being early on and thinking that, I had a little bit of money, and you get to the end of the month and, I've got a $9,000 tax bill, sales tax that I collected that I was just passing through. And it was like, dang, that was not even my money, but it was in there giving me false hope the whole month. And it's the same exact thing that you're talking about. And so whether it's sales tax or whether it's, the flow of someone else's money, I mean, whatever that scenario is, it gives us this like fog where we can't make good decisions, is what you're saying. The decisions that you need to really be able to determine how to get to the next level. So like what you said, being able to decide what projects to do. There's no way for you to determine whether you like this project or you don't like this project because you didn't know. You just were saying yes. But once you start doing the math, you're like, that was a lot of work we're not going to do that anymore. Like it becomes like super obvious.
Yes. It once you can start making decisions based on data, it's a game changer. When you're making decisions 100% based on feelings or feelings and emotions and just wants, like what you think you want, like it's impossible to make a good decision. Well, regularly, sometimes you nail it, you're like, yeah, that worked, but you don't know why it worked. So you don't know what part of that project you should do again, or, that's with everything in life, when you buy a car, if you don't go in there with some data about what you want and what you should get and what it should cost and all those things, you leave there and you're like, what am I driving? I should have got that car. I like that car a lot, and all of a sudden you start looking into it and you made a bad decision. So getting some data before making those decisions is important.
Yeah. I want to give the listener just one last piece of encouragement, because you may be in a business that's maybe small right now, and you're listening to Stacy talk about, having this data and just making quality decisions. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's okay that it doesn't happen overnight. It's going to be a progression of you making a decision, going, okay, I'm going to know my number, whether you're in construction or in marketing, it doesn't really matter. Per client or even per month or per quarter, however you're like breaking that down, you got to know the inflow and the outflow so that you can make decisions. And it's going to, over the course of the next 30, 60, 90 days, 120 days, like really work into this. You also haven't said this, but you said it. Underneath all of that, this guy named Tim was giving you advice. I'm going to guess that he was your business coach, which was an investment that you made in a time where you said you weren't even paying yourself very much. Like we haven't even talked about that decision. So if you're listening right now, be encouraged that literally Stacy was paying someone else to have him like take in good advice. And then also it took time to implement this. So if you want to get to Stacy's level, it's okay. You may not be there today, but you'll be there one day. Anything that you want to add there before we move on?
Just that, you say 30, 60, 90 days, you will start noticing once you start looking at data, or like just asking to see some data or figure out how to even develop the data. It gets better quickly in that 60, 90 days. But this all started happening 7 years ago where I made this decision to do this. And like every single week I meet with the finance team and we think about how our data could be better, what we could look at differently, or what we were messing up. Oh man, that whip report, that's not quite right. So it's a never ending thing of data,
Yeah. We got to go to the next level. If the data is what got you here, data in a different way is probably what's going to get you to the next level.
Yes.
All right, well, let's go to the speed round here. We've talked about your decisions and even just a little bit of your process there, knowing the data. I think that's just super applicable. What is the thing that you're tracking, the data point, if you will? If you could only pick one, what is that?
If I had to pick one, it'd be sales.
Okay.
It's a tough one because I feel like the right thing to say is client satisfaction, or the right thing to say is employee satisfaction, or the right thing to say is gross profit. But none of that exists if you're not closing deals, right? So you got to start with sales.
Yeah, it's so interesting to obviously I get answers of all of those and to be able to see the math basically. So for you, a sales number, and then you can go, all the way back down to the rest. And that's in essence how we need to run our business. It's not that we don't have access to other KPIs. We need to be able to quick glance, make a decision, and move, pivot. Like you said, you haven't had these detrimental decisions because you've pivoted quickly. And a lot of times that's being able to see things and watch trends and make decisions. And you don't know that unless you know what KPI to watch. So for you, it's sales. I love that. Anything else you want to add there?
Nope.
What book or resource would you recommend for a business owner trying to grow?
Well, I'm trying to grow. I really like Never Split the Difference. I also, one that like really made a big difference in like how I ran the business was Leaders Eat Last. Simon Sinek.
Yeah, that's a great book as well.
I literally changed how I looked at my job,
Why?
Because I realized that my job, quote unquote, had shifted from owning a construction company to being a leader. And I have always kind of been a natural leader. People follow me for a certain amount of time, until they realize that I'm just kind of like going, I don't know, I kind of wear people out. I'm go, but I realized that what I needed to really start doing was develop leaders instead of just have this people following. And that book, again, I read it at a time in my life where I was really struggling with leadership team here, and we weren't great leaders. I read a couple of chapters, kind of just opened it up. There's a long story. We could do a whole nother podcast about what has actually developed from that book in my life.
Wow.
But I opened it up and a whole bunch of kind of serendipitous things happened right around it all at the same time. And I was like, wow, which is ultimately, I think it's probably why I'm doing the Alair thing, because more serendipity happened just because, and I tend to like, I'm not the big, like, frou-frou guy, but man, when someone smacks you in the face a few times, you say, oh, Jay, I should probably pay attention,
I think that's so honest though, Stacy. I mean, the kumbaya, the frou-frou, the get together, the rah-rah. Look, I don't think any of us, regular guys doing extraordinary things like we talked about before the recording, I don't think any of us like necessarily like patch that on ourselves that we like that stuff, but it's still meaningful. And when you pay attention to the little things, you're like, okay, what I love what you said is you opened up a book about leadership and then other things started happening at that time. It's not that those things maybe weren't happening. Possibly they were. Your mind opened when you read the book. You started paying attention. You started seeing the things that were happening around you, potential opportunities with a rebrand that aligned with what it is that you actually were saying that you wanted.
Yep. That's exactly right. I don't remember what they call that, but it's like when you think, oh, I really like yellow Ferraris. All of a sudden you see them everywhere,
Yeah. A greater or lesser desire, when you can clearly state what it is that you want, or in this case, you read a book that's like, Whoa, like, yes, I haven't thought about it like that before. And now your mind's open to the possibilities. And I'm sure you were just like tinkering with solutions for days or even weeks. And that's where your mind just, you're constantly looking to fill the gaps with that equation of what's the solution? How do we solve the problem? And you don't get yourself into that situation if you're not constantly like agitating the situation or your brain, like reading a book on leadership. Oh, I'm already a good leader. Probably why you're not growing as a leader.
Exactly.
Okay. What do you think about intentionally networking or masterminding with other entrepreneurs?
I mean, it's great. It's good. I think that my business, a lot of the people that I sell to or that are a client base of mine are other business owners and entrepreneurs. And
that.
so I do that every single Wednesday at 5:00. There's a restaurant right here in town that I have a standing reservation for two. And Alyssa, my assistant, she finds a new architect or a builder or
Nice.
anybody that might want to sit down and have dinner or cocktails. And we do that. And I get so much out of it. I've been a part of a few different construction-based groups that, I spent time and money and to go all over the country to meet with these people and learn about each other's businesses and things like that. And now with Alair, it's more of that, every single Wednesday as well. We have a partner call. It's 140 of us on a call. And, they always teach us, somebody speaks and teaches us something, and everybody does shout outs. And we talk about, good things that have happened and bad things that have happened. And I think that it's valuable. And but the real value there is you end up getting some connections with, more personal connections with other businesses that are kind of like yours and within that 140. And you start talking regularly and you start asking each other questions. And what I think the value of it for me, especially when it's within industry and within like the same company, this Alair deal, is that our innovation or the way we learn and change things within our companies, it doesn't have to all be my idea anymore. I don't have to run into a wall and say, oops, we better go right instead of left there, which is how I would train my staff. It's how I developed everything. It's okay. We're going to go. And then we're going to hit something and we're going to, back it up and go around that wall and go till we hit something. Now it's like, hey man, you did this before. What did you hit? Where should I go right? And so it really helps us accelerate that flywheel of who we are and where we're going. So I think it's extremely valuable.
Yeah. There's what I heard you say, there's some humility in there. You're coming to the table with an already extremely successful business, and but yet you're still willing to reach out to the other guy. He's in the same business you are, or maybe even he wasn't. He's an architect. He's coming to have a dinner with you or cocktails. Both of those examples are just super practical ways I think that have grown you, and anybody listening can do both of those like super easily. Your 5:00 standing a reservation is right here for me. Like I get to meet 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4 or 5 entrepreneurs all across the country right here across Zoom. And like I was telling you before we hit the recording button, sometimes that turns into a deal. Sometimes that turns into maybe a mastermind client, maybe a friend that needs to know a friend. Maybe it's 2 guests that need to know each other. I don't know. But here it is, it's a standing reservation. And so you just shake hands, get to know people. I love that. I got a question for you about family. Every entrepreneur, we've talked about, good decisions, bad decisions. We've talked about the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, the wins, the money, the lack thereof, the times of press, all of it, right? And what I have found is that 100% of the time that every entrepreneur I've talked to on this stage, as well as many others, is that there's this obsession in the business, right? Like that's how you become successful. You're dialed in, you're obsessed. Okay, we agree there. But it's also the way that we become successful in our family or as dads or as parents. And so my question is, how have you done both at the same time? Because I don't believe that it's either or this thing called balance. I think that we have to go hard on all of it. So how have you done that?
Well, of course, I'm sure I could do better as a dad and as a husband and all of that, just because there is a lot of work, we all could, everybody could do better, but I just keep going, I work a lot. I get up really early. I get up at 3. I start my day at 3 so that I can be off at a reasonable time. I can have dinner with the family. I can go all over and watch Cason's baseball games and try to participate as much as I can in all of that. I can't coach. Don't have time for that right now, but I can coach him on a personal level, one-on-one.
That's right.
I think that, the other way that you do that is you just make a commitment. It has to be a priority. And sometimes I'm really good at that. And, if I'm being totally honest, sometimes I'm not. And that's one of the reasons why Danica, my wife, was such a great choice, is not only does she let me do all of that or all the stuff I want to do and need to do, she also reminds me when I'm not doing this other stuff because she knows that I want to be a good dad, and she knows that I want to be a good husband, and she knows I want to be a good son and a good brother. So she supports it even when it's like calling me out and saying, hey buddy, you said you wanted to do this and now you're not doing it. And, oh, you're right. And if there's one thing about me, like, she knows that when I die on my gravestone, it's going to say something to the effect of, here lies Stacy. If he said he was going to do it, he did it. So is super important to me. So she knows that's important, and she holds me to that. And I think that anything we want, especially people that are driven like you and people that are listening to this show, if they want to be a good family, man, they will be.
Yeah. People do what they want to do. I love what you said there about your wife almost being like the ultimate, mastermind member, because that's what accountability is. That's what getting together on a podcast like this or on your 5 o'clock deals or just joining a group or whatever, is that you can put out your plans. And I don't necessarily need someone else to hold my hand, but it's just in those important moments where maybe I need a little encouragement or maybe I need a little tough love and go, hey, bud, you said this, but you're not doing this. That can work in the business guy to guy. And we're like, oh yeah, I'm all about it. But then as soon as the wife does it, it kind of, we call it nagging, right? Or we call it whatever. It's like, no. Like she's just saying what you said. She's just reminding you of it.
And we've also learned that a good way to do that is we write them down, right? At the first of the year, typically at the first of the year, and we do a check-in. A couple of years ago, I guess it wasn't this last New Year's, but the year before, I said, hey, we're going to go out on one date night every single week, no matter what. And we're going to meet for lunch one day every single week, no matter what. And, that's not easy.
That's a commitment. That is a commitment.
It's not easy. It's okay. Thursday nights. Well, hold on a minute. We've got this thing. No, that's not what we said. And first we weren't awesome at it. We'd get 3 out of 4 in a month, or we'd go 8 in a row. And then, well, she's got nothing or something. But then now, we're a year and 4 months in, and I mean, we don't miss it, and it's really important. We talk about what we want to do as a family, how we want to be seen to the world, or like how we want to affect the world as a couple and as parents and those type of things. So,
yeah,
I think it's really, really important. I also, though, have a little bit different view of like what it is for me to be a successful, like, family man. Yeah. That's like, I think the most successful or the most important thing is that I leave something lives longer than me. And I will sacrifice some family happiness for that, because as a family, we're going to do something bigger than just us. And I'm going to lead that charge. And everybody says it's yet to be seen, but you read all the stuff about nurses. They tell you what people say at the last. Nobody ever says they wish they would have worked more, or they wish they would have done this. They all would have spent more time with the family. And I don't think that'll be me. I think that what I will say, what I will say is I did it. I'm here. I'm going to die tomorrow. And there's still something behind it. And my son gets to either continue that or drive by it every day on his way to work, wherever he wants to work, and tell his wife and his kids that, grandpa, he started that and he did that. Or, the state can support, colleges and things like that. And I just believe that if all you are, it sounds like I don't value it. But if you're just a really good dad and a really good husband and you create something that maybe you're rich, and things are good while you're here, but like how many generations remember you, like obviously I'm not going to turn into Bill Gates, but his name will never be forgotten because his name's on everything. And he really changed a whole bunch of the way things are, for better or worse, whether you like him or not.
Yep.
He doesn't ever die because people will say his name forever. And I think that, best case scenario for a lot of men is that their grandkids maybe talk about him, maybe great grandkids talk about him a little bit, but then it's over. Nobody goes and visits their grave. Nobody says, man, that guy changed my life, So
Yeah.
I think that it's just as important to me. And it's good that I have my wife to balance it out and keep me honest with the other stuff though.
Yeah. Well, you're right, because she's in the day, in the day to day. She's the one that needs attention and affection today, as well as the kids, obviously. But what I heard you say, which is just so right up my alley, because I although I've maybe expressed it differently in different language, the family that you're talking about is just a couple of generations down the road that you're also claiming responsibility for. And so you got big shoulders. You're like, hey, I'm going to take care of my kids. Don't worry about that. But I'm going to sacrifice a little bit of that so that my kids and their kids and their kids and maybe even their kids have something to build. And then even just as a personal thing to add in here, when I started recognizing that it wasn't just about the money, like you said, it wasn't just about leaving them money or something. It was, how can I spend time with them, building with them, whether it be in the business or in their mindset, so that whether my kids or my grandkids or my great grandkids, when I'm gone, have the thing that really matters the most, is how you think and what you do with it. So you can have the asset, the business, the real estate, whatever, but it's going to be gone in 3 generations. That's what stats say, right? So how do I, in the meantime, spend that time intentionally building them so that way it actually continues?
Part of that is making that sacrifice. Part of that is that they Kason, my son, he knows, well, he's 12. He's old enough to know why I do it, which is, hey, I don't miss his baseball games, right? I'm there for those, but I'm not home early every day to hang out at the house. So, but he knows why that is, because, hey, we Eakmans are creating something for the next Eakmans and the next Eakmans. And maybe if we really do everything that we want to do, we're creating something for some other families too. Like maybe we're changing that a kid who's 11 years old right now, who their parents are just had a house built. Maybe they're going to say like, wow, that was such a great experience. Contractors, man, they've really turned it around. And so that kid doesn't think that contractors are jerks and take the money. It's, kids they listen, right? And they're like, well, I don't want to be a contractor, but parents hate them. You don't want that, right? So maybe that kid becomes a contractor who opens an Alair, who continues this generational thing, changes his life or her life, or, it can really grow if you, as a family, make a commitment that, hey, we're going to do this together.
Yeah. It's a family decision. I love it. I got one last question here for you, Stacy. You kind of hinted at this at the beginning that you never want to, reach the end and be regretful. So my question is this: if you could whisper in the younger Stacy's ear, what would you say?
Hurry up.
Okay.
It took me a while to get on track. I but I let a lot of years go where I didn't have really an identity. I didn't know who I was. I was drinking and drugging. I'm 41 or 42. I'll be 42 this year. And, so I started this whole thing really trying when I was like 31 or 32. And really, I was really just barely getting, I wasn't really trying to build a business. I was just trying to eat dinner at that point. So for 5 years or 6 years, maybe I've been really out, and if I would have started when I was 30, I'd be in a totally different spot. So I think I would say, hurry up and and take care of your knees. You're going to get tired. Just keep, get going early.
That's awesome. Take what are they? What was that? The vitamin for the knee health?
Fish oil or something.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, exactly. Stacy, that's awesome, man. I appreciate the vulnerability. How can the listener find you? Number one, if they're in your area in Seattle and they're looking to build a beautiful custom home, how can they find you? And then also two, how can they reach out and just pick your brain as a business owner, as a contractor trying to change the industry?
Well, we've got all of them. So you can find us on our website, which is www.Alair Kirkland, which is ALAIR Kirkland.com. There's our Facebook, which is Alair Kirkland. There's my personal brand, but Alair based Instagram, which is Stacy, STACY Eakman, EAKMAN. There's our company Instagram, which is Alair Kirkland, all one word. And then LinkedIn, of course, Stacy, STACY, last name is Eakman, EAKMAN. That's a great way to connect. And then if you need events, www.contourevents.com. And I think that's it. I wrote them all down, but I don't have them in front of me, but I think that's it.
That's all good. We'll put it in
you
the show
can email
notes
me as well. You know his email. And my email address is stacy.eakman, that's EAKMAN, alairhomes.com.
Love it. Love it. We'll put all that super easy to get in the show notes as well. Thank you for doing that. I just appreciate you being here, man. Like 6 a.m. your time here Monday morning. I hope that the listener not like appreciates that, but what you gave today, being already up for 3 hours, on a Monday morning, was fire, dude. And so I just appreciate not only just the time, but just the fact that you've been doing this thing for long enough to where you could share what you shared today. So selfishly, I appreciate that. And thank you for doing that. Blessings on your family and your business, your team, all the things that you touch in 2023. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing literally over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings literally exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.